Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Tat Sat. So we have now dealt with the Mahavakyas in the Rig Veda and in Yajur Veda. The Yajur Veda is Aham Brahmasmi, taken from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and then the Rigvedic Mahavakya is taken from the Aitiriya Upanishad, Pragyanam Brahma. These two we have already discussed. Now we are graduating towards the discussion of the Mahavakya in uh, the Mahavakya as it is available in the Chandogya Upanishad, Tattvamasi, you are that. Now, this particular Mahavakya is often confused by those who are not well exposed to Vedanta, and they think everybody is Ishvara, I'm Ishvara kind of thing, and sort of boosts their ego to believe that everybody is perfect, there's nothing to find. A very elaborate discussion about Tattvamasi is there in Chandogya Upanishad in the sixth chapter, and there is a long dialogue between father and son. And so the father asks a few questions, and the son tries to answer. He fails, then the father teaches him. The context is like this, and we would be entering into it. Uh, in this Upanishad, we can straightway go to the introduction itself. Tattvamasi Mahavakyartha Vicharaha Tata Adeshana Adhyayanaya Anurupa Gurukula Basanam Acharya. Tata is father. His dad sent him to study in a particular Gurukula, a residential school run by some Acharya. He went there. And his son's name is Shwetaketu, and the father's name is Uddalak Aruni. Shwetaketu Mahamanaha. And Anuchayamani Pitru Sadanam Eaya. This son, there's a beautiful way in which this is described. When Shwetakatu comes back, his father notices that his son is full of ego. And he's walking in a different way, like when young sons come back having done their, graduate degree, they come back home, they try to show off the new things they have studied. Now, Shwetaketu is trying to sort of remain a little visible, maybe a little proud, and father is sort of noting the change in his behavior. He calls him up. And then, Gyatva Nijaputram Vidya Valiptam Sanamarga Ninishaya. The father wants to know whether he has actually been moved in the right direction. Pita tam aprichat. He asks his son, Uta tam adesam apraksho yena shrutam bhavati amatam matam avigyatam vigyatamiti. Very powerful question. Did you study everything with your professor? The student says yes. Coursework is over? Yes. He studied for several years. So you studied everything? He says yes. Okay, now tell me, did you ask your teacher, did you ask this question and get some answer, get some advice from your teacher? What is that question? Yena ashrutam shrutam bhavati. Listening to which what you had never heard, now you have heard. Yena ashrutam shrutam bhavati. That you have never understood, now you have understood. Amatam matam. What you did not know, now you know. Avigyatam vigyatam. Essentially, the father is saying, what is that foundational truth? Have you done some research into it? Knowing which you know everything. Because the dialogue is not about the diverse materiality of the universe, it's about the foundation of this universe. Have you asked any questions to your professor, to your acharya, about what is the basic element which sort of explains this diversity? When he asks this question, the son panics a little, and it's very obvious. because if he cannot answer, his father may well send him back to the residential school and say, you're not good enough, go study for more years. The son is very intelligent. So he asks his father, no, father, I have not asked, but you can teach me for sure. Vyuhala manaha sweta ketur apagata vidya uddatihi sarvan api vedan aditya api akritartham atmanam. He has studied all the Vedas, but he has not reflected on what is the Vedanta Arthaha, what is the main intention of this text. He has mugged it up, he has read the text, but he hasn't been able to reflect on what is the deeper insight in the scriptures. He hasn't gone there. It's like the students who have finished their course, then they go and appear in one of these examinations like UZ NEET or IIT Advanced, and then they flunk the examinations because they haven't really got it. Or they go and face an interview, they have done their research and they have written 4 or 5 papers, and there is an external examiner and he asks some fundamental questions about the field of research, and the PhD candidate isn't able to answer them. The situation is very similar. Bivhala manaha, he panics. Swetaketur apagata vidyudhatihi sarvan api vedan adityapi akritartham atmanam manvanaha tattva upadesaya pitaram. Then what does he do? Parthyamasha. He folds his hands and says, Papa, you explain to me. I haven't really been able to grasp this. This question is too profound. What about the father? Does he send him back? Go do the coursework? No, he doesn't do that. Arunihi putra vaschalaha. He's very fond of his son. He's very compassionate. Putra vaschalaha. Apagata vidya garvamenam somya vachanehi. Then he knows this guy was kind of a little flippant, a little arrogant, but he very calmly and compassionately, with loving words, tries to explain the foundational secret insight of the Vedas. Then what does he say? Sadeva Somya idamagra asititi. There's a long dialogue in the 6th chapter. So first the father says, there's a long dialogue. We can just touch upon I can just go. I can in fact switch from this page. Let me do end this commentary, then I will switch over and show you a few lines from the Upanishad. Sadeva Somya idamagra aset ekam eva advitiyam, he says. Verily it was there before the whole creation, this whole expansive cosmos manifested. Before that, what was there? Only truth, only Sat was there, the father is explaining. Sadeva Somya idamagra aseta. Iti ityadina khanda satkena. There are the Astama Khanda onwards until Chaturdasha Khanda of the 6th chapter, 6th Adhyaya, Sashta Adhyaya. Sarvam Srishtikramam Pratyagyapayat. He explains all these Srishtis, how everything happened. Ante, in the end. Sarva Upadesha Sari Shirobhushanam, the crown of all the advice that is given. Paramarahashyam Upadidesha, what is the top secret, the father explains. Sa ya esho anima etad atmam idagam sarvang tat satyagam sa atma tattvamasi shvetaketu. That which pervades everything, that which is the foundation of everything, that which has become everything, O Svetaketu, that is that self, that Atma, and you are that, O Svetaketu. The advice, the deep secret here is that we all often confuse ourselves as the bodies and minds we seem to be attached to, but our Swarupa, our foundational nature, the metaphysical reality which hides and sits and holds these manifest realities, is just one. And that is that Sachidananda Vigraha that we do the pranam every day. Therefore, he's saying, Sa Atma Tattvamasi Svetaketu iti Chandogya Upanishad 688 in the Ashtama Khanda. And then Does he just advise one? No, he repeat that statement 9 times, mentioning 9 stories. Durgrahya Vishayatvat, because it's very difficult to understand. It's not easily grahya, not easy to understand. Bhuya eva ma bhagavan vigyapayatu iti punah punah prarthayantam putra. After he understands Tattvamasi Svetaketu, father tells one story, the son says, okay, Papa, please explain it again. I couldn't get it. Because he wants to really digest it. For the first time, he's hearing something which he hadn't heard in the classroom from his acharyas. Now he's asking his father. Punah punah parthayantam putram, the son which is asking again and again. Yatha somya iti gambhiratam arthasya samyag pratyayanaya, in order to make him understand, have that pratyaya, that understanding, create that understanding, help him comprehend the secret, this father. Sadaram sodaharanam. Sadara means adarana shaha, with love, and udaharanam shaha, with some examples. Udaharanina saha navakritya upadidesha. 9 times he gives that advice. Bhagavan Arunihi, the father. Tad upadishtam saman samanantara prasaktam chandogya ghataka asesa rahasyanam mukatalankara bhutam tattvamasiti. It's like the crown of all the advices which are given in the Chandogya Upanishad, and that powerful, secret is captured in that Mahavakya, Tattvamasi, you are that. Mahavakyam Vyajikishuhu Tad Ghataga Tat Padartha Nirupanaya Sadeva Swamya Chandogya Mantram Arthada Patati. Tattvam Asi. So it starts with Tat. That is the Brahma Padartha. Tvam is the Jiva. Jiva and Brahma is only one. But Jiva is Alpagya, Ishvara is Sharvagya. How can Jiva become Ishvara? So you cannot have Sakti Vritti or direct denotative analysis of the words. You have to look at the connotations, Lakshana Vritya. So you have to interpret these words. And these words do not directly represent the truth, but they help you meditate on the truth. And therefore, in this verse, it starts with this. But before we get into this, yeah, I think it may be very useful for you and for us to sort of delve a little into the, I'll just go to that Upanishad, yeah, so that you like it. Sodasa, no, we are not going to Sodasa Khanda. We'll have the Astama Khanda, it starts there, right? So, you see, in the whole Sashta Dhyaya is very powerful. Yeah, so I'll just touch upon a few statements, and then it sort of, this is from the Sringeri Mutt uh, Upanishad, so I'm not getting everywhere, only the 6th chapter. So, here the father son dialogue starts here, and after studying, he's coming, and then he asks this question. Yeah, the father makes one statement, which we have discussed earlier. Yatha somya ekena mritpindena sarvam mrinmayam vigyatam syad vacharam bhanam vikaro namadheyam mritika ityeva satyam. Kasmin vigyate sarvam vigyatam bhavati, knowing what everything becomes known. He's saying Yatha somya ekena mritpindena sarvam mrinmayam vigyatam. If you understand the nature of clay, then you can understand all the artifacts made of clay. So you understand what is the upadana karana of this whole Vishwa, what it is made of. Yeah. Similarly, another example, Jatya Somya Ekena Lauhamanina Sarvam Lauhamayam Vigyatam. Now there are several artifacts made of iron, but if you understand iron, then you can understand those. And in the beginning, how it came, Sadeva Somya Idamagra Ashit Egam Eva Advityam. Yeah, tadhi eka ahura asadeva Evedam agra asid ekam eva advitiyam tasmad asatah sajjayata. Now, first he says from Sat everything has come. Then says from Asat everything has come. The son will doubt how from Asat Sat can come. Out of absence something present can come. He says what was avyakrita has become vyakrita. Asad and Sat essentially means foundationally the Brahman was always there. But during Pralaya Dasa, during the state of dissolution, it wasn't visible, it wasn't manifest. Like in quantum physics, where from this whole thing they would say there was a quantum vacuum and there was an excitement in the energy field. And now then the fundamental particles started emerging. How did they start getting into formation? Then they assume materiality. But in the beginning, there's nothing. They're talking about a quantum vacuum. Similarly, here, in the beginning, there's nothing, but you cannot say there was nothing. There was something which assumed name and form. There was something which wasn't visible, and that gained visibility. Okay, so this one he gives an advice because you see he sort of now combines everything, and finally he will do a summary of it. And he now explains Teshang khalu esham bhutanam trineva vijani bhavanti andajam. Then you some people are born out of the eggs, the reptiles, and then you have the plant life. Then you have Swedaja, those who are born out of different bacterial and all kinds of insects and stuff like that. Swedaja. Then you have Jarayuja, people mammalians, right? So he's sort of categorizing people, and then how it happens, how the Srishti, these are different Srishti Prakriyas also. Then in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, you have the Panchikarana, we have already discussed that in this particular Panchakosha Prakarana and Panchakosha Prakarana you have studied, and the Panchabhuta Prakarana we have studied it in the Vedanta Panchadashi. Here he's talking about Trividikarana, that means Akash and Vayu, because they are not having physical form, it's only talking about Agni, Apa, and Prithvi Tattva. Therefore, a tripartite division they are talking about. But there is no contradiction because the idea is to understand how the manifestation happened. Exact process is not a mandatory point of discussion. What is important is to understand that diversity has emerged out of a state of unity. And then he goes on, and finally, in the Astama Khanda, there is this discussion. He says, if you look at it, then he's saying, you see, when we sleep, we enter into that state, the Karana Sharira. Anybody knows who is he or who is she in that state? He's saying, Swapiti Nama Sata Suvya Sada Sampurna Bhavati. Swam apito bhavati tasmad enam swapititi achakhyate swam he apito bhavati. And then that particular thing he concludes in the 686 or 688, he sort of concludes it. Yeah, here. So ya esho Anima etad atmyam idagam sarvam tat satyagam sa atma tattvamasi shvetaketo iti bhuya eva ma bhagavan vigyapayatu iti tatha somyah iti uvacha. Then the son says, you please explain it again. Saha yah sadakhyah esha uktah anima anubhavah jagata moolam etad atmyam etad sadatma swasya sarvasya tat etad atma tasya bhavaha etad atmyam. It's out of the subtlest reality. This whole diverse material cosmos has emerged. Etena sadakyena atmana atmavat sarvam idam jagata. Now, these are metaphorical explanations about manifestation. There is not a creative God who is sitting at the top and is creating. Such statements are also there, but here essentially the focus of these Vedantic statements, the focus is on what? That the unmanifest doesn't mean absence. The truth always was. The consciousness, provides the foundation for everything that is manifest. And then the manifestation is essentially emergence of names and forms. The foundational truth, which is truth, consciousness, bliss, remains. And that is what? That is that tat padartha. And there are, then, I'm just, yatha somya madhu, madhukruta nististanti, nana tyayantanam brikshanam rashan, samabaharam ekatam rasam gamayanti. There are several such statements. And I would try to sort of bring it to a very quick summary instead of getting into the details. First, he mentions the deep sleep state where we go, and then there is non-difference. Sort of driving home the point of unity. Then he gives the example of honeybees. The honeybees will collect honey from different flowers, different trees, and they will store honey in that hive. And in the hive, do you know whether it is out of the rose flowers? Of course, now there are, those people who do these decultivation. They are kind of doing this in honey business. So they have specific flower gardens, and then they now sell specific honey made out of a particular, because there are different medicinal values. But general practice in the jungles or in the gardens, the bees will go and collect honey from different flowers, and then they'll put it in the hive. And then in that honey, you cannot know whether it is out of rose or it's out of lotus or it's out of jasmine. You don't know. It's just one. Similarly, he's talking about that the diversity is kind of visible to the sense organs we have, but essential swarupa of honey is honeyness. Similarly, that sat, that isness, is just all pervading, which is common to all of us. Similarly, he gives another examples of the rivers. Now, the rivers are flowing, and that's also there in the Bhagavad Gita, and then they enter and they dissolve into the ocean. Now, where is Ganga and what is Godavari and where is, let's imagine, Kaveri, or for that matter, Brahmaputra or Sindh? They are all part of the ocean. Similarly, all of us are carrying names and forms. And then we have emerged out of that universal self, and we shall all dissolve into that universal self. He gives another example. Then he's saying, Svetakatu, you are that. So he refers to that universal, and Svetakatu is an individual in front of him. He's saying, do you know, Svetakatu, you are that? He's trying to hammer that point into his mind. Again and again mentions that. So then he mentions that, do you know, you bring a tree and you take off a branch and you can plant it elsewhere, it also grows. Even if you cut that branch, it doesn't die. What is permeating the whole tree, the branches, different branches, is that life force. Similarly, this whole universe, that life force, comes out of what? It comes out of that Brahma Tattva. Yeah. Similarly, then he also mentions that. Then in the next story, he asks his son to bring a fruit from a banyan tree, then takes out the seed, asks him to take out the seed, and then split it into tiny parts until it becomes invisible. Then he says, look, this particular tiny seed or particle of the seed that you're holding in your hands, which you cannot see, has manifested into this huge tree. Similarly, the cause of the universe is very subtle, is very tiny, and yet that has expanded and gained this infinite material diversity. So you understand that which you cannot see is the causal element, which has expanded and has become this huge banyan tree. This has become this whole srishti, this whole creation. Then he asks him to bring a rock salt, a small rock piece, salt, and then he puts that into a bucket of water. Then he says, find that piece of salt. The son is looking for it. It's not there. It's called Saindhava because those rock salts are kind of collected from the Sindhu Desha in Sindh, in Pakistan. They have these rock salt in enormous amounts, and they're kind of exported all over the world. So he says, where did that salt go that has dissolved in water? He says, can you locate it? He says, no, it's at the top is salty water, at the bottom is salty water. Then he says, that Brahman is similarly all pervading Saindhava Ghanavat. Wherever you touch is salty. Similarly, the presence of Brahman is all pervading. It's everywhere and nowhere, nowhere to see, everywhere to feel, and feel the presence of that absolute pure consciousness. He gives another example. How do you discover him? He, that story is also there in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. There is this guy who has come from Gandhara and he's blindfolded. Some people tie his hands and legs and rob him off, and he's lying on the ground and making a noise. And then there is a compassionate teacher, like some guys come and they release him. How does he go back to Gandhara, now Afghanistan? So this guy now asks a lot of people. They say it's towards northwest of Uttar Pradesh or wherever he was robbed, and he starts walking. These people are Deshikas. Deshika is the guys who are doing Disha Nirdeshana. They're giving him sense of direction. And slowly he reaches back in his village with the help of aid and advice of these compassionate teachers on the way. Now, similarly, the one who is looking to know what is the Atma, he wants to understand who he is and what is the source of him. In same way, now he's saying that he has to do the inner search and he'll be able to reach there finally. And after that, that sort of continues. That he gives another example. What is the other example? He's saying there is a person who is about to die. You know, the Jnanendriyas you have, the sense organs, they kind of lose their power. So you are seeing, and yet you will not be able to recognize people. You hear things, and yet this Indriya Devata, the ability to hear, that faculty, sort of loses its power. And slowly everything is coming to that prana vayu, then it leaves the body and goes. So again, this diversity and unity that is being discussed again and again. And finally, he gives another thing that that is the story that there is a hot piece of iron is given to a person who is lying, and if he's actually truthful, that hot iron rod shall not burn his hand. That was a practice in certain parts of ancient India. He's saying when a person is established in that Paramarthika Satya, then absolutely there is no fear that he's going to lose anything. Yeah, that is how he's mentioned here. Now look at this verse number 5. Ekam eva dvitiyam san nama rupa vivarjitam sristehe puradhunapyasya tadriktam tad itiryate ekam eva advitiyam sadeva somya idamagra asid ekam eva advitiyam. That is what prior to Srishti Prakriya. So it was all one, unified. There were not many people, there were not many things. Yeah. And it was without name and form. Nama Rupa Vivarjitam. Then Srishti happens. Then what do you have? Srishtihe Pura. That was there before. Srishtihe Prak. What about now? Adhuna api asya tradriktvam. Even now that Brahman, that foundational reality of this whole cosmos remains Nama Rupa Vivarjitam. But why do we see the word? Because now it appears as if it has names and forms. So we say, Punnamadaha Punnamidam. It was there absolute, it was full and final, even now is full and final. The only difference being that now it appears as if it has name and form. Earlier, it didn't have name and form. Foundationally, it's one only, it's not many. After Srishti, it's only assumption of names and forms. This is called Vivartavada. There is no real Vikara, unlike in Brahma Parinamavada of Ramanujacharya or the Dvaitavadis who believe that Srishti is creation is real. Advaita Vedanta explains that this is a projected reality. This is not real. This is phenomenal. This is an apparent truth. This fundamentally still remains one. Srishtihe pura adhunapi asya tadriktvam tad iti iryate. That is what the Shrutis explains. Yeah. Now, one of the best books where this has been very well explained, in fact, Vedanta Sara by Sadananda, the Tattvamasi, that is very well. We will try to go there a little, but let's look at the commentary here for the verse number 5, and then we will look at this. Jagatah Srishtihe Pura, before this creation, before that, Praga Utpatehe, before creation happened, Ekam Eva Swakarya Patita Anya Vastu Virahita. Swakarya Patita. Because you see, Srishti is out of Ajnana Tatkarya. Because of ignorance, we think this Srishti is real. Otherwise, this is just an appearance. It's fundamentally not real. It's only phenomenal. And Swakarya Patita Anya Vastu Virahitam. There is no duality. There is nothing other than what it was. Swagata Veda Rahitam. Now look at these words. Sadeva Somya Idam Agra Asid. Sad Eva. Ekam Eva Advitiyam. When you say Ekam, by Ekam, Swagata Veda is denied. What is Swagata Veda? Hand and body. Anga Angi Bhava. Angsa Angsi Bhava. Whole and parts. Brahman is not a material reality that it will have a whole thing and part thing. Nothing of that sort. That is what the Vishishadvaitas and other Dvaitavadis believe, that you are Karna Brahma, you are a tiny particle of Brahma, of Vishnu, you are a Sariri Bhava. Your Angangi Sambandha, they think. This whole samsara is a tiny part of Bhagavan Vishnu. That is their theory. Not in Advaita Vedanta. This is Vivartavada. We will get into it a little without making it very complex. We'll try to keep it simple and yet try to get what exactly is being conveyed to us. Anyavastu Virahitam, Swagata Veda Rahitam. Swagata Veda, Sajatiya Veda, and Vijatiya Veda. Swagata Veda, whole and part distinction is gone. Then, because it is. Next one is what? Advitiyam. Advitiyam is there is no second. That means what? Bijatiya or Sajatiya Veda is also, refused. That's not there. And Eva. The most important thing is Evakara. So when you have Evakara, then you are denying Sajatiya Veda. Sajatiya means what? One hers, another hers. You are saying Ekam Eva Advitiyam. Ekam Eva. That means not two of the same category. Sajatiya Veda is refused. Brahman, another Brahman, no. There is just one Brahman. Advitiyam, there is no Vijatiya Veda. What is Vijatiya Veda? And what is Vijatiya Veda? Patra Puspa Phaladitaha. Brikshasya Swagata Veda Brikshantaram. There is another tree. Swagata Veda, then you have Shakha and Vrikya Veda. Patra Puspa Phaladitaha. And then Vijatiya Veda Siladitaha. Stone and tree. They are two different things. So, Sajatiya, Vijatiya, and Swagata Veda Rahita. And why this? That is being Desha Kala Bastu Paricheda Sunyam. Bastutaha na Parichinnam. Bastutaha means the Swagata Veda is in there, Sajatiya Veda not there, and Vijatiya Veda also not there. There is nothing called Brahman and Sansara. They don't accept Sansara is real. So you cannot say Brahman is there and Ajnana, Maya is there. Brahman and Maya too. No, Maya has no fundamental existence. It's just a presumption. It's a presumptive theory or hypothesis which is entertained in order to make sense of this phenomenal diversity. There is not Ajnana and Jnana, Brahman and Jagat, Brahma Satya, Jagana Mithya. So Mithya is there, but let's assume that there is something which is not Brahman, it's also there. No, we don't accept it. There is a rope and we see a snake. And we cannot argue that there is a rope and there is a snake that I see. So there are two things. No. There is snake is just a presumed thing and we see that, but it doesn't exist. What is there is only the rope. Similarly, there is only Brahman, which is the Sarvadhishtanam, and the Jagat we see is a phenomenal, but it's a projected reality which we consider to be fundamentally real, and that is our problem. Therefore, there is no Sajatiya, Vijatiya, Swagata Veda. And finally, Sadeva Somya, that means Astita Matra Vastu. Why? Then, therefore he's saying that astita matra, that isness, it is there. Now, Brahman is, and there is no predicate, is only isness. There's no subject, no predicate. It's only that pure consciousness which is all pervading. Siste pura adhunapyasya tadriktvam. Tadriktvam is what? Deshakala vastu paricheda sunyatam, which was there, that particular thing. Then you can say that why do I then see this sansara? What do they need? Srishte pure prag utpete ekam eva swakarya patita anya vastu virahitam swagata veda rahitam cha advitiyam swa vyatirikta anya vastu virahitam. Advitya means swa vyatirikta, without itself, anya vastu virahitam, there is nothing else. Nama rupa vivarjitam sat astita matram vastu आसित इति शेषः. That sadvastu was there. Asya sadvastunaha adhunapi. Now, even now, srishti anantaramapi. Now, srishti has taken place in between. Srishti for us is also not real. It's just a presumed event. There is nothing foundational about it. This is only a projected thing. Because of our ajnana, we consider it real. Srishti anantaramapi tadriktvam tatha vidatvam. And it is there, but it remains as Raparupa Vivarjitam. So the foundation remains what it was. The snake is just an imagination. The rope was there before you saw the snake, and the rope is rope after you saw the snake. The snake is the Srishti. So you see the snake now doesn't mean the rope has ceased to become a rope and it has become a snake. No, it hasn't become a snake. We see the snake. That's what the argument is. Asya sadvastuna adhunapi srishti anandaramapi tadriktvam tathavidhatvam. Tadrik vastu tat sabdena iryate kathyate. Tadrik vastu, what is that? Nama rupa birahita, that vastu. Deshakala vastu paricheda shunya. That is what is free from the limitation of kalataha, vastutaha, and deshataha. Not limited by time, space, or its materiality. And then asya, then he's saying tadriktvam tatsabdena iryate kathyate. Yadi srishte purvottarayor ekasmin eva vastuni vidyamane kopi vishesho vidyateva. If actually before it was there and now also it was there, then why do you use the word srishti, and what is so special about this srishti? How do you distinguish this from pralaya? Would you help me understand? Ayam visheshaha. The teacher is explaining. I'll tell you what is the difference. Srishte prang, before Srishti, Nama Rupa Vivarjitam Bhasate. Before creation, it was there without name and form. Srishti Uttara Kale, and after the creation happened, Nama Rupa Sahitam Iva Bhasate. Now it appears as if it has names and forms. Nama Rupa Vyakaranasya eva Srishti Sabda Avideyatvat. What do you mean by now? Vacha Ramana Vikaro Namadeya Deyam Mritika Ityeva Satyam. Only clay is real. Gold is real. Kataka Kundaladi. These are only forms. Can you buy a necklace because gold is very costly? You can go and say, give me a necklace. Sir, this is going to cost you 3 lakh rupees. And you say, no, but I'm not interested in gold, sir. Just give me a necklace. Is he going to give you anything? He will think you are trying to have fun. He might just ring up the police that you are there to create some mischief. Therefore, he's saying, Srishti Savda Avideyatvat. What is that Srishti Savda? Only a reference to names and forms. Foundationally, Brahman remains Brahmans. Names and forms is what we consider the Srishti. The examples which Vedanta gives is, see, the foams, the bubbles, and the waves. Waves in the ocean are names or forms. Ocean remains ocean. Yeah, and similarly, the other example, for example, is the sunlight, which is actually without any colors. But then, if you put a certain prism, then there is scattering of light. All the 7 colors appear. You remove that prism, again it just appears as white. Like the rainbow is a reality, which is just an apparent reality. And the rain stops, and there is No such thing happens, no scattering, and the sunlight is sunlight. The seven colors are not visible. So similarly, he's saying, so Srishti Savida Avideyatvat. What is that? With names and forms. Nama Rupa Yoho Mithyatvat. Nama Rupa are Mithya. What do you mean by Mithya? We have to understand. Mithya is not false. Is Sadasad Vilakshana. Is neither true nor false. Because the snake appears, Ayam Sarpaha, this is a snake. The Sarpa part is a joke, but that part is real. This is a rope, you see it as a snake. This is part of the sentence is fine. Therefore, Ayam Sarpaha, Ayam part is fine. Sarpa part is problematic. So then you say, I am a Srishti, this is a Srishti, but no, I am Brahmaneva. Pragyan, I am Atma Brahma. There is no problem. Atma you are replacing as Jagat. That is the problem. Therefore, he's saying Nama Rupa Yor Mithyatvat, Sadasad Vilakshanam. Because it is appears, it cannot be totally false. But this snake doesn't exist. So it's not true either. So what is it? That the foundation is real, the way it manifests is phenomenal, not real. Then he's saying Tayor apahiyamanayoho sadeva avasisyate. Then if you remember these adjectives and specificities that we superimpose on the rope as a snake, you remove that superimposition, only the rope remains. Similarly, the diversity that we think are real and which are only phenomenal, behind that, beneath whatever is visible to our Gyanendriyas or sense organs, what we do not see is that foundation reality called Brahman. Tad etad ardhena eva sadeva somya idamagra asiditi chandogya mantra prakarane samyak pradarshitam. That tat padartha, that lakshana vritya, you know. Tadartha vicharana cha ditya prakarane. I have already explained that in the second chapter. This slokasya vakhyana vasare samyag krita iti na atra abhyasyate. I don't repeat it again. I have already explained to you between the verse number 25 till 39. He has already explained to us in the second chapter. Then what is that particular thing? And I'll do a comprehensive thing, Tattvamasi, in the next class. Right now, let's look at the text. Then we'll have more Vedantic meditation on Tattvamasi. So who is that Tvam Padartha? You are that. Now that is that Nama Rupa Vivarjita, that Sachidananda, that Shuddha Brahman, Nirupadika Brahman. What about Tum? When you say Tattvamasi, you are that. What about the Tvam Padartha? He's explaining. Shrotuh dehendriyatitam bastvatra tvam padiritam ekata grahyate shiti tadekyam anubhuyatam. Shrotuhu, who is the speaker? Uddalaka Aruni. Who is the listener? Swetaketu, the student. Who is the teacher? The father. There's a dialogue between father and son. Shrotuhu deha indriyatitam. Deha is the sthula sharira. Then indriya, and you add manomaya kosha and vijnanamaya kosha, and also add the karana sharira together. Then everything, beyond everything, what is that? Atma. Panchakoshatitaha avastatara shakshi. Koso atma. Who is that? Avastatara shakshi. Panchakoshatitaha. That is what is the lakshartha, the intended meaning of the word tvam. It's not about you, the person, you, the pure consciousness, you, the unit of pure consciousness. Shrotuhu, of the Shrota, Dehindriyatitam, Vastu. What is that Vastu? Atra Tvam Pade Iritam. Through the word Tvam Pada, that is what is explained, Katitam. And Tattvamasi, Ekada Grahyate Asiti. Tattvamasi, what is the meaning of this word Asi? That there is Samanadhikaranya. Tat and Tvam are referring to same pure consciousness. Ghatakasha and Mahakasha. Ghatakasha is spot space. Mahakasha is the cosmic space. The cosmic space is captured or seen to be limited by the contours of a pot. We call it pot space. But that adjective is a differentiator. It remains space. Similarly, the consciousness which pervades this whole universe, including all of us. So, because we are sort of captured in a body-mind complex, We confuse ourselves with this body-mind complex, but actually we are that consciousness which is non-different from that universal consciousness. Therefore, he's saying, Ekada grahyate asi iti. Tattvam asi. You are that. So, through the word asi, you are that ekata, that aikya paramarsha, that you are essentially one. Tad aikyam anubhuyata. But just by understanding we are one, you don't become one. By mugging up some Vedantic statements and some philosophical arguments, no Vedanti becomes self realized. We have to strive to internalize and make it an integral part of our understanding and consciousness. That is what is advised. Tad aikyam anubhuyatam. Now you do practice Sravana Manana Nididhyasana. Through this meditation and abhyasa, now you can realize it. Look at the commentary. Shrotuhu Swetaketo iti Shrotaram prati sambodhanam kriyate. Because the father is explaining to the son. Tasya Svetaketoho iva. And who is the Svetaketu? That is the Drishtanta. Drashtantika, what is the context? We are doing Vedanta Panchadashi. So here Shvetaketu is Mumukshu, the one who is aspiring for liberation. Mumukshoho Dehindriyatitam Sariratrayad Vinnam. Sariratrayad means Stula Sharira, Shukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira. We will do more elaboration in the next class. Sariratrayad Vinnam Shakshiteya Bhasamana. And that, you have the Stula Sharira, Shukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, Chidavasa, but there is Shakshi Chaitanya, the witness self. Bhasamanam vastuatra mahavakye tvam pade iritam twang shavadena bodhitam. That is what is being hinted at. That is the indication. By tvam you understand the pure consciousness which is inhabiting in you. Tvam savdena bodhitam. Asi iti, you are. Iti savdena ekata tvam savdarthayor. Tattvam sabdarthayor. You have tvam and tvam sabdartha. You have tat and tat sabdartha. There are two words and there are arthas also. They are only one. Aikyata, ekata grahyate. That is what you're supposed to accept. Tad evam vakya bhutartha bhutam tattvam padarthayor. Then you have this vakyata tattvamasi. Then you understand that they are actually one thing which are being spelled out through the word you are that. What are we referring to? The unity of pure consciousness which is appearing as you and which is appearing and what remains that universal consciousness. Pratyak Brahmano Swataha Prasiddham Aikyam. Who establishes the unity of the self? Swata is Swayam Prakasha, Swata Siddha. The sun doesn't need a torchlight. Ameva Bhantam Anubhati Sarvam. And Tasya Bhata Idam Sarvam Vivati. By the light of which everything is lit up. It's not physical light. We're talking about consciousness. We're talking about the consciousness by virtue of which everything we can make sense of, which remains the foundation of this whole universe. Therefore, he's saying Prasiddham Aikyam Manana Nididhyasana Purvakam Anubhuyata. You read, you listen. So Shravana is actually Artha Nirupana, what we are doing. But after that, you have to do Shanka Nivarana, Manana, and then you also have Sansaya, and then Viparita, Asambhavana, Sansaya, Asambhavana, and Viparita Bhavana. You have to nullify all these wrong tendencies of the mind. So Manana Nididhyasa Purvakam Anubhuyatam. You do this in order to establish yourself in the state of unity. Sakshat Kriyatam. The Sakshat Aparokshat Brahma. That Aparoksha Jnana, that direct knowledge of the self you need to have. That self is not an object of knowledge like you are studying physics or chemistry. You are verily that. So essentially the layers of ignorance, if we are able to remove, then that self, ineffable, self-effulgent, Swayam Prakash, that Chaitanya will blossom, will become self-evident. Na idam paramarahashyam kevala sastra charchaya gochari kartavya. Gochari kartavya, vishay kartavya. You cannot understand it. You should not only keep it as the subject of discussion. Sastra charchaya, doing Sastra charcha, can you get it? No. That's not the purpose. It's a Paramarahasya Kintu Jivana Muktehi Sakshatakari. So Jivana Muktehi. By going to people who are liberated, and then you also work on it, take the advice and meditate on it. Iti anubhuyatam iti savdas swarashyam. And therefore, he's saying you have to understand it. But a little more elaborate discussion, we would have it on Saturday when we meet again. And I also try to sort of take you to what is this whole business of adhyaropa and apavada, and how, what is the tvam padartha and what is the tat padartha. So the vachya, what is vachya vachaka sambandha? There is a word, there is a vachya. What are you referring to? There is something called shakti vritti, there is something called lakshana vritti. Through lakshana vritti, we indirectly reach to what is intended to be explained to us. So when you say tattvamasi, doesn't mean you are God or anything. So bhatyartha is God, Ishvara, of tat, where lakshartha is that Chaitanya, Sachidananda Swarupa, Nirupadika Brahman. Similarly, in Jiva, the Vachyartha is Jivatma, but the Lakshartha is that Pratyak Chaitanya, that, pervades and is, pervades, permeates, it's everywhere, in everybody. There is where we reach the understanding of that equivalence or that Samanadhikaranya, that they are essentially referring to one reality, and it's not a relationship between a part and a whole, or there is no, what is the relation between tat and tvam. We would do a bit of meditation on that, and we'll do that when we meet again on Saturday. So I'll bring it to a close. If you have any question, you can ask. We have a little time. Do you have any question, Sanaji?
Uh, Swamiji, yeah, in fact, I'm just curious. As we have Mahavakyas in Advaita, is there a counterpart something in Dvaita? What they say in Dvaita? I never encountered. I never. That's why I'm just curious. Mahavakya, it's a Tattvamasi. Is
Yeah,
there any?
yeah, yeah. So very rightly you have asked. The same Mahavakyas are made use of by the Dvaita Vedantis, the Vishishta Dvaita Vedantis and Advaita Vedantis. So Tattvamasi, the Bhaktas, the Vaishnavas, they would say Tasya Tvamasmi. So Aham Brahmasmi, they would say that. So Tavasmi, they will say Tattvamasi means Tattvam Asi. And then Madhvacharya will say, Atatvamasi, you are not that. Tattvamasi, Tasya Tvamasi, you belong to him. Tat can also be in sixth case, Vivakti.
Okay,
So they would twist it
okay,
because that
Tattvamasi.
understanding,
Okay,
yeah, Tasya Tvamasi, you
Mati.
belong. Tattvamasi, Advaita Vedanta saying Jiva Brahmaiva Naparaha. They say, no, no, we cannot be. Bhagavan Vishnu is at the top. We are tiny parts. We are at his feet. So we have Saranagati. So they will say, Tasso, I am yours, my Lord. So same Mahavakyas there are, but then in different philosophies, some people accept 6, 7, 8 Mahavakyas. These 4 Mahavakyas are common to all, but different schools of thought make different interpretations of the same Mahavakyas. I will also reflect on that in the next
Okay,
class.
okay,
So we
okay.
can do the Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadaha
Purnamadaha Purnamidam
Purnam
Purna Purnamudachyate
Purnasya
Purnasya
Mada
Purnamadaya
Purname
Purnameva Vasishyate.
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Gurubhyo Namaha Hari
Namaha
Om.
Harihi Om Tat Sat.
See you.
Pranam sir.